Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the GallowgateShots podcast and YouTube channel. We are back for another match reaction. It is myself, Chris, your host today, joined by Ian. It is just the two of us. We will make this one short and snappy, hopefully. One thing Newcastle weren't yesterday, snappy, Ian. But we're just going to jump straight in, and we're going to go through the starting 11 first of all, because the starting 11, finally, we get to talk about this. And Eddie Howe has now got decisions ahead of him. He's got players available, unlike obviously just before the Christmas period and throughout the Christmas period, where you could guess the starting 11. We saw three changes, I believe it was, possibly four. Can you remember? Let's go through them. So we'll start with it.
So we'll start with goalkeeper.
Karius in for Dubravka. Dubravka had a illness, so he wasn't there. You also had Dan Burn being replaced by Tino, but still a back four. You also had Barnes being replaced by Isaac.
That was the three, yeah.
That was the three.
Yes.
So let's talk about, because the main talking point which we've have over the previous few weeks is the likes of Dan Burns' performance. There's a lot of fans criticising him and being at fault for a lot of goals and positioning. A lot of fans, and including myself, have wanted Tino to be given that chance at left back. Rumours started circulating a couple of hours before kickoff at the Emirates Stadium, though, to say that Newcastle would potentially be going with a back five. I thought Eddie Howe would have went that way. I wish he kind of had of now, but I was expecting Dan Burn just to go in to centre back, and we'll have three centre backs, Trips on the right hand side, and Tino coming in on the left. And you still got the attacking flanks, as you could put it, with Tino and Trips pushing on. Were you shocked to see it's still a back four?
Yeah, massively. I think not so much from a protection point of view. I genuinely thought he would have just done the same back four and not dropped Dan Burn. But for him to drop him completely, I think the second option would have been what you said: put Tino left back, move Dan Burn inside. But I was quite surprised to see Dan Burn dropped completely. But if I'm honest, I think for Dan Burn himself, I think it was probably needed just to take him sort of out of from under the microscope, so to speak, and ease the pressure on sort of the fans, like getting on his back a little bit, and like the Dan Burn situation
kind of take him out of the spotlight. Yeah,
like the Dan Burn situation for me, he's obviously capable of playing there. He played in the best defense, or the joint best defense in the league last season.
Yeah,
he had that injury. I think Bestie touched on all the smiling faces. He's probably come back. He didn't have the most pace in the world anyway. He's probably lost a yard or two. That, in combination with getting zero protection from the midfield three, and what someone touched on, the lack of like a sweeper keeper. He's being that isolates the defense completely anyway. But then looking at the lack of pace, and yes, he can play left back. For me, he's not a natural left back. And so like you say, the spotlight has been on him time and time again when we've been targeted. So I think Howe does trust him though, and I think he has a good relationship with him, and that's maybe why he's given him so many chances. So I was quite surprised to see him drop out, but I think it was probably a benefit to him more than anything.
If we look at the other changes, obviously Dubravka missed through illness, which is obviously he wasn't dropped. A lot of people were saying that he had been dropped before a game, but not the case. So Karius comes in. It was Karius' second Premier League start, I believe it was. For ourselves, obviously he got the run out in the cup game as well. I'm sure there was a stat that came out and said it might have just said his second Premier League starts in X amount of years. The last one might be Liverpool, to be fair.
I'm sure it said on Match of the Day this morning it was something like 2020's his last Premier League start.
Last one. Yeah, sounds about right.
By all accounts, I thought the first half, obviously I know we conceded 2 goals in the first half, but he made some really good saves. And what I thought about the Carabao Cup final is he didn't get a lot of sort of time on the ball, either in his hands or on his feet, so he couldn't sort of ease himself into the game. Whereas yesterday, albeit we conceded after 10 minutes, but I think they had maybe 2 or 3 chances before that, and he looked to have a bit of confidence. And like I say, for all it's worth, I thought he probably was our best player, which is a little bit telling considering he hasn't played in literally a year.
The poor lads had 2 games featuring for Newcastle United, and both of those were kind of backed against the wall performances. So it is a shame. Do you know what it is? I think Karius is a decent keeper from obviously the time which we've seen him at Liverpool. I know people hold on to the mistakes that he made against Real Madrid. I believe it was. Had a couple of clangers, but for a third choice keeper, he's great. He's great for a third choice. Other change was obviously Bonds was replaced from Isak. Obviously, a shift in formation as well. Gordon went back onto the left hand side, hence why Bonds has been dropped for Isak. Bit of a risk starting Isak, but we know what Isak's muscle injuries can be like. Ian, I was unbelievably shocked to see him start that game.
Yeah, I was. I thought maybe he's a break glass in case of emergency kind of thing. I was surprised to see him start. The only thing I can think of is he wants minutes in his legs because he is literally the only striker. With his pace as well, maybe it was a plan to try and hit them on the counter if we could break, whereas Bonds not as quick. And obviously, given if you started Bonds and then Gordon is that sort of false 9, Isak trumps Gordon in terms of he's a natural sort of finisher. But yeah, it was in terms of that, I was quite surprised in seeing him start, and I thought he maybe would have got, I don't know, half an hour off the bench or something similar to Willock. But that was one of the positives.
You mentioned Willock, great positive seeing Willock back on the bench. Obviously, we'll get on to what happens later in the game as well. But great to see Willock. I'm a huge fan of Joe Willock, and I think he's a type of player that you don't realise how good he is until you see him back on the field of play. Yes, he can be sidelined, and you just think, you're just missing. But when he's playing, you really
notice the difference.
The type of player,
yeah, 100%. He carries with an extra sort of 30, 40 yards up the pitch when I don't feel the midfield 3 that we've got at the moment can do that. So that has been missing massively. But it was great to see him back, and obviously we'll touch on his performance a little bit later.
Let's dive into the game itself. I think if you had asked either of us before kickoff what we were expecting for the game, we would have probably been the same way, thinking a lot, just like many other Newcastle fans. Yes, we did do a match preview as well, where the 4 lads discussed that, and everybody had Newcastle down for a defeat, which is understandable. And obviously the run that Arsenal have been on, the scoring goals for fun, honestly, and they're just taking teams and just bending them over the knee and giving them a good old spanking, and that's exactly what we got last night as well. The first half, just to summarize the first half, that was painful to watch at times. I was expecting it to be backs against the wall and for us to be defending against our lives, but at half time, TNT put an average position of Newcastle players on the screen. The furthest player ahead was Almiron, and he was still in his own half. And Isak was playing in like some a defensive midfield role at times, and it was such a pain to watch. And I know a lot of people referred it to similar to what we've seen under Steve Bruce before. You're going to get these games against Arsenal. It shows you the gulf between the two sides. And it as much as I hate saying it, last year, yes, we were fantastic last year. Nobody can take that away from us. I'm not going to say it was a fluke, but we overperformed to a massive standard, huge. And anybody that disagrees with us, fine, you can't do that. Just let one know why you think you've got a different opinion on that matter. But for me, yesterday just highlighted the complete, like I said, gulf between the two sides. We'll start with their first goal, and it's just errors all over the shop. We'll concede 3 corners within the first couple of minutes of the game. We just can't get the ball out one half. Then the first goal that is taken from corner position once again, and the defense are just an absolute shambles. Sven Botman tries to clear it, completely misses the ball. It's who's it? That swings at it.
Is it Livramento?
Yeah, Tino swings at it. Then as he swings at it, a ball bounces, then hits Botman's knee, then just drifts over the line, slightly over the line, in his goal line technology that clarifies that with the referee. But first of all, it's a decent save from
really good save, point blank. Really quick in terms of his reflexes, and then obviously I know this is looking at hindsight and us having the benefit of seeing it like after it's happened, but when you look at after the second ball, there's literally no Arsenal player around. I think there's Karius and 3 Newcastle defenders. They're all sort of. I just think they just panic.
I think they're waiting for the other person to put the foot through it.
Yeah. And then they realise there's been no contact. We'll try, and they just panic, and it's just a calamity of a goal. And to be honest, it's indicative of how we've been. We just look so lacking in confidence. I think that first half, like you said, in terms of the average positions, I think we had 1 touch in their box in the first half. They had 37 or something ridiculous like that. It was literally just like a training drill where attack versus defense. As soon as defense have it, ping it back to the attack, and they'll go again. Like, we just couldn't deal with their press. And this, as much as I dislike Arsenal, I dislike Arteta. They are great. They're a really good footballing team.
They were phenomenal yesterday.
Like, their pressing was so intense, and it wasn't just 1 or 2. It was very similar to what we were doing to teams last season, where they were hunting in packs and then forcing mistakes, and then when they actually got the ball in and around the box, it was just like little one touch passing and popping it around the corner. And we're literally, for the first half, we're chasing shadows. Like, couldn't get near them. And like I say, it's to take nothing away from Arsenal. I think we were very, very poor. I think, but Arsenal were just another level yesterday. And it goes back to what you were saying. Like, we were classed as right. Like, I know obviously we weren't in a title race last season, but we're up and around Arsenal for a good period of time. And looking at where we are now, I think we are playing at our level, unfortunately. And I know obviously I'll probably get pelters for it, but realistically, we're not a top 4 side. We've got some top 4 quality players, but we're probably where we should be, which adds to the frustration of this season for me a little bit, because if you had all your players available and sort of you had that period over Christmas where you had the opportunity to rotate, we could be pushed on a little bit further. But I think for where we are at the minute, it's probably correct.
Yeah,
but yeah,
it has been such a strange season, and obviously, like you said, a lot of that is down to the injuries and freak accidents which are happening at the club as well. To injure players, broken backs, dislocated shoulders, broken toes, the list goes on. I agree with you to a certain extent. I think even if those players were available, top 4, I think, yes, we'll probably still be challenging for top 4, but not be that established team as such. Probably very similar to Man U, the situation Man U find themselves in. The chase the pack, then they drop a couple, then they're still always chasing. I think our close competitors right now probably would be Man United. And head-to-head, probably the closest team alongside Newcastle at the moment. But moving on to the second goal, do you know what it is? When I first saw it, Ian, I thought that was just defensive mistakes once again, which I wouldn't necessarily class as a mistake. It was just Arsenal's passage of play there was absolutely fantastic. It really was. Botman gets caught. He wasn't sleeping, but we all know Botman
almost
doesn't have
caught
speed.
On his heels.
Yeah, doesn't have speed. That's one thing which he doesn't have. And once again, just like Burn, it has been highlighted in the last handful of games that the defense is unbelievably lacking of any sort of pace whatsoever. And that's all that it is. You've got to give credit to Arsenal. It was a great finish as well by Havertz.
Yeah, great goal. I think because I always look sort of where could you have stopped that goal coming from? Obviously Trippier, I think, is maybe 2 or 3 yards deeper than the back 4, which plays him on, and then he's shouting. It might have been Cher or Botman to cover. I think it was it Martinelli who made the run. Obviously Botman's not watching the ball, but he's sort of watching the flight of the ball. He doesn't get close enough to block the shot. But when I watched that back, it was it reminded us similar of Ross Barkley's goal against Luton, where Havertz literally has the freedom of the box just to like. And I was thinking, well, who could pick him up? I was thinking Trippier, but Trippier's sort of still pushed out wide. I noticed Longstaff watched him and then got drawn to where the ball was, even though we had 2 defenders to cut that pass out rather than following the man. But that's sort of splitting hairs. It was just a really good passage of play by Arsenal, like you said, and they've done that time and time again without scoring. And obviously we've touched on how leaky we are and how many chances we're conceding. When you give a team like Arsenal with the quality of players they've got, you're going to get punished more often than not. I think going in, at 2-0, I personally feel was a bit of a let-off. I think they could have had...
I was quite relieved, to be fair.
Yeah, I think they could have had at least 3 or 4, at least. And I think that kind of was, like you say, you kind of seen, maybe it's not the shackles coming off, but just like a little bit of almost relief that, oh, well, we are getting beat. It's like, that's expected. And then there was a couple of times, maybe in the last 5-10 minutes of the first half, where we got in behind quite a few times, whether that would just be like route one. It just seemed like we had a little bit more confidence in what we're doing. And then the start of the second half, I thought we started all right. We had that chance with Gordon.
A couple of chances in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, and the Isak chance. I must say with Isak, for me, he's a great goal scorer. I think he is a lot more effective on that wide left position, cutting in, just with how he dribbles. I don't think he's a Callum Wilson type player where you can play him as a lone striker. I don't think he's got the build. I think
his chance that he did get, Ian, he's quite central and he takes it to the right, doesn't he? Then he just takes one too many touches where probably there was a tiny window of opportunity where he could have just touched, then hit, and had a shot at goal. Obviously, he doesn't even get the shot away in the end. He rolls it out to Almiron, I believe it may be.
Yes.
And it's a short pass. It just gets intersected straight away.
But yeah, I think we started the second half a lot better. I mean, it couldn't have got any worse from the first half. But
yeah, you need to see improvements. Yeah,
I think even if I had to see those chances when it was 2-0 and it went to 2-1, I think you would have just seen Arsenal step it up a gear and it would have ended the same anyway. And I think their third goal, for me, that was the most frustrating. It comes again from their press just inside our half. Botman gives it away. And then they've got, I think it's a 4-on-4. They pop it to Declan Rice, who, again, it's just one touch. He makes Cher commit and drags him out of position. And then Saka does well to cut in, but it just goes through. It goes through Tino, goes through Botman, it goes through Cher, who Botman doesn't take a swing at it. Cher doesn't. It's like what I would swing my left foot like. It was.
He's just hitting that air, isn't he?
Just a very, very frustrating goal to concede.
You've got to give credit to Saka there as well, because he puts Tino in knots. He's going on the right, he's going on the left, and going back and forwards. And Tino's thinking, I'm just going to have to try and stop this from coming in. Doesn't even get close. And Saka, it's a great finish, it really is. But like you said, there's opportunities still at that point to clear it. Fabian should have probably got something on it. But once again, he's just balance is off, because obviously he's trying to cover it. When it got to 3, I'm not going to lie, because that was just after the 60. I think it was around 65th minute thereabouts. I'm worried at that point.
Yeah.
I'm thinking floodgates. Yeah, like I think once they've got the third, because even in the first half or so, when they got the first 2, constant, they never gave up. They didn't think they had won the game at that point. They just continued.
They were relentless.
You can tell with Arsenal at the minute, they want to score goals. They want to score as many as they possibly can. And it seems like they've got a bit of a point to prove as well, to show that they should be up there competing with the likes of Man City and Liverpool in the title race. The fourth goal for Arsenal, I'm not sure, is that being awarded as an own goal, or has it actually?
No, I think it was that. No, I think it was that, because what they've judged it as is that, I think, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Apologies, any Arsenal fans watching. He's like Kavor or something.
Yeah,
the Polish. I think he's Polish. His header's going in anyway, but I think it comes off Miley's hand. And I can't remember. I've seen a comment saying, "Oh, Carey should have done a lot better." It's literally the slightest deflection, and
shift your body weight.
Yeah. He's sort of just palmed it up into his own net. But I was the same as you. I thought it could have ended 6-7-8 nil, especially with how sort of prevalent in front of goal Arsenal have been. And like you said, it's a case of they are proving a point. Obviously, last season they were in a title race and they fell away. Whereas now I feel like, and we've seen it before with Arteta, where he uses sort of things that have happened in previous seasons in certain games to really light a fire under his team's belly. Obviously, you've seen on the Amazon documentary where we beat them 2-0. And then the fixture coming back to St. James's Park last season, he used that as sort of inspiration. He's probably done the same with the return fixture, where we've scored quite a legitimate goal. Any Arsenal fans that are watching, you can stop crying about it. You've hammered with, and deservedly so. And I think that's as well that they lost in midweek. So I think they had a point to prove coming into this game, and they've proved it, in my opinion. Like they're just like head and shoulders above it.
Before we go through our goal and the final goal of the game, just to go through a couple of substitutions Newcastle made. So Almiron was replaced by Murphy. Barnes came on from Isaac. Willock came on from Bruno. Bruno's gone through another game without picking up a yellow card. I think that might be his 6th in the row.
I was quite, to be honest, I was quite surprised at that. Me and Scott had a little discussion at half time, and I just felt he looked furious with how the whole team was performing. And I thought he's going to commit a foul just sheerly out of frustration that he doesn't need to and pick up that booking. But seemingly he's come away with it. But I don't know when that cut-off point is. I don't know if there's a cut-off point because
I'm not sure if there is a cut-off point. To be fair, I think it just continues now.
Because now we're just like, until sort of Joe Linton comes back or whoever else in the middle comes back, we're just going to be sort of on tenterhooks, just waiting for him to get booked so he can miss 2 games. But it was like we touched on before. It was great to see Joe Willock come back, and obviously he's took his goal really, really well, coming from another substitution in Dan Burn.
Burn from Liverpool and Lascelles for Botman was the other one. So Burn and Willock come on and they work well. Burn looked quite, I want to say lively, but that's probably not the right word to use with Dan Burn. But he was pushing forward. He was trying his best to get up that flank, and it was working well at times. He put that little dink over the top for the assist for the Joe Willock goal. And do you know what it is? Out of all 5 goals, I probably think Joe Willock's is probably the best one. It's a great header. It's absolutely fantastic. I always love to see it. And Jordan Pickford is great for doing this, where he looks like he's full stretch as a goalkeeper, but the ball still manages
absolutely miles away.
Just
it loops lovely, and it's a really well taken header. And we know he can do that. He obviously went on that run when he was on loan, where he would arrive in the box late and get a lot of goals, a lot of headers as well. But it was nice to see him back, nice to see him scoring. That's a positive. Isaac not picking up an injury is a positive. I thought Dan Burn, like you said, did a little bit better going forward. He did clear one off the line, but to caveat that came from him. I genuinely don't know what he was doing, dispossessed, but he got back into the position and stopped it going in. So in games like this, it's frustrating. Yes, I don't think it's unexpected. Like I genuinely thought we would have got absolutely hammered. 4-1 is probably, I'd say maybe we got off a little bit late. It would have just been 4-1, but I think
scoreline looks a bit better when we've got a goal, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think Arsenal were en route to their 10th clean sheet of the season. I think it was 10th or 11th. It's always good to ruin a clean sheet for a team as well.
Not when you've got 2 Arsenal defenders in your FPL. Absolutely furious about that.
Well, that's your fault. That's your fault to put them in there, mate. I just want to go over a couple of the stats as well, because we've touched on how one-sided the game was, but when you see it on paper, it really highlights it. So Arsenal had a total of 18 shots at goal, 8 of those on target, to Newcastle's 3 shots and 2 on target. I think we didn't even have a shot at goal in the first half, Ian. No. If you look at the other way around, though, if you look at the likes of fouls, Arsenal committed a hell of a lot more fouls than what Newcastle did. 15 Arsenal, and just the 6 for Newcastle. Corner kicks. Guess how many corner kicks Newcastle United got, Ian?
None.
A big fat 0. Arsenal got 9. Ball possession wise, it's there's not much in it. It's 55%.
Really?
Yeah, 55 ball possession.
That's surprising, because literally that first half was just Arsenal camping our half.
Yeah, it's one of those things, mate. We all expected it. There's a lot of people getting the knickers in the twist as usual. From both sides of things, still still Arsenal fans still have their knickers in the twist. I've seen a lot of things about Arsenal finally getting revenge on Newcastle United. I don't know where this revenge and where this forced rivalry has came from with Arsenal. It's really peculiar. I don't get it. Arsenal fans have now got this sudden hatred for Newcastle. We saw throughout the first half where Karius wasn't even taking his time with goal kicks, and the whistles and the jeers were coming from the Arsenal fans. Like, just calm down, lads, man. Like, he's taking 4 seconds. Like, just chill out. But they've just got this. they've got a proper bee in the bonnet at the minute with Newcastle and Eddie Howe and whatever else. I just don't get it. I honestly don't get it. I don't think I'll ever get it, but it looks like it's going to stay there for a long time. They want this rivalry. Fair enough. They can have it from their side. I've seen a lot of things from Newcastle fans saying that Eddie Howe should be sacked. We're expecting more from this game. Let's be honest. If you're realistic going in this game, you're not expecting to even get a point.
Nah.
Yes, you're probably expecting more of a performance in that first half.
Yeah.
You're probably expecting a very similar performance to what we saw in the second for the full 90 minutes. That's probably what I was expecting. I was really concerned that we couldn't get out of our own half. Of course I was. But having said that, I probably was still expecting a 3-0, 3-goal deficit, really. I would have been very surprised if Arsenal had gone on to absolutely give a hiding. And that's just me being honest. Like, as a Newcastle fan, you've got to look at these situations and look at other teams and think, yeah, we're not at their level. We're far from it. And it's fine. Like, it's fine. Things will change, hopefully, in the future. But right now, and I know people like to use this to beat people with a stick, but we're so early on this adventure and this journey which we are going on at the moment. I think last season is really threw a spanner in the works with fans' expectations.
100%.
Yeah.
It's kind of put we're in a there's a false narrative now of that this is where we should be, when realistically, if you look, we've still got, just to name a few off the top of my head, Dummett, Ritchie, Lascelles, I think possibly Longstaff. They were all in the Championship with however many seasons ago now. Like, and they're still not just fringe, like they're players that have been a feature for this season. It is massively early. I think the thing that does concern me, I say concern, I don't want to sound like you might have to roll the banner because it's going to sound like Eddie Howe out, and it's not the case at all. I don't think there would be anyone that would have we're in this position or better than the position that we're in this season, given the exact same circumstances. The only thing that is in my mind is it doesn't seem so, particularly with the midfield three. Yes, I understand completely. We've got injuries, but for me, he's trying to use the midfield three that we have at the minute as if they were the likes of Joe Linton, Joe Willock, and try and sort of execute a game plan with those three, when realistically Bruno, Miley and Longstaff are very, very similar players. They aren't ball-carrying players that can press well. You don't have a natural six that can just sit there while the other two press. So I don't know whether it's sort of a limitation of Howe's coaching method, whether it's just the personnel, whether it's just something he has to develop in terms of looking to utilise players to their strengths rather than like a blanket approach. But what I can't remember who was on about it, but when obviously Eddie Howe first sort of became manager, everyone was saying, yes, he's a good manager. You'll score 3 goals, but you'll concede 4. You're now starting to see that a little bit, where we are just leaking goals for fun. I get there's a lot of reasons for that, but it's a case of, should he be recognising how we're leaking goals and managing that? Because it seems to me like
is that your biggest concern? Is like we've gone from being such a solid unit at the back to now dropping off when we look at conceding any sort of counter attack that comes out. It doesn't even have to be a counter attack; it can just be any sort of attack.
100%. So even last season, even when we were getting countered, I was never really that nervous. Like, oh no, they're going to score here. Whereas now, when there's a counter, I'm like, that's in, that's a goal. But for me, I think it does come down to those reasons of who we have available in midfield at the moment. We're back 4 is completely isolated when teams are playing through her. They aren't the quickest. There's a lot to exploit there. But for me, it's recognizing that and coming up with a tactic or a formation or a game plan to try and reduce that, where the last however many games now, we've just seen it time and time again. One ball gets teams 50, 60 yards up the pitch. And that, for me, is the concerning part. I have no doubt when these players come back, the likes of Joe Willock's fully fit, the likes of
that's a huge
Joe
issue. A lot
Linton.
of people are probably the same way of thinking what we've just discussed there, Ian, is that yes, it has been such a big drop off, but then I think you still have to throw that caveat in there, saying that we're missing a hell of a lot of players that are so influential in those sort of roles. Joe Linton, especially, and obviously we mentioned Joe Willock earlier on. It's the fundamentals there, and even like Wilson not being available up top as well. Just hold on that ball a little bit
Yeah.
longer. It's right the way through. Nick Pope, I won't even discuss Nick Pope being missing as well. Huge.
You know what it is? When he got injured, I thought he's not going to be that big a miss. But again, very much like Willock. Don't get us wrong. I know Nick Pope is a good goalkeeper for anyone watching that. But you don't really realise what else he brings until he's gone, which is the likes of that sweetener. Just give the back four that little bit of safety that we're not the quickest, but if the ball's over, we can count on Pope to be there in his starting positions. Great. Whereas like Dubravka hasn't had that. Obviously, he wasn't playing yesterday, but again, the issue, yes, you can isolate single players, but I feel for me, it's how we set up and how we try and administer a game plan with the personnel that we've got, because I don't think, particularly, like I say, the midfield three that we've got can play like Joe Linton, where he breaks up play, drives you forward, and that's what needs to be worked out more than anything. But all that being said, we're still 8th, is it, at the moment? We're still in with a good chance of getting some European football. We've got the 5th round of the FA Cup on Tuesday. If you win that, you're in the quarter-final. So there are still positives to the season. It's just been, for me, a frustrating season for one reason or another. But
yeah, so if we do look at the table, yes, Newcastle United, 26 games played on 37 points. You've got Brighton in 7th, just above us, same amount of games played on 39. There's obviously a bit of a gap there. And the next one up is Man United, sat on 44 points. So that's 7 points difference between ourselves and Man United, which is still quite a chunk. That's 3 wins before you even leapfrogging them without them picking up anything. If you look underneath us, it's a lot closer. If you look at it that way, West Ham in 9th. They have played 25 games at the point of recording, and they are on 36 points, so just a point behind Chelsea and Wolves. We won't obviously know Chelsea's because they play in the cup final today.
Yeah.
They're sat on 35 points to pair them. So then the next one down just to go is Fulham on 32 points. So from ourselves all the way down to 12th, there's only 5 points in it, with a lot of those teams with the game in hand as well. So Newcastle can be dropping up and in out of that top 10 in the upcoming week. So we're just got to keep an eye on that one. That's one of the big games out of the way, though. That's one of the games which people are probably worried about going into. It was only a 3-goal deficit at the end of the day. I think a lot of people were expecting more.
A lot more.
Like was said, that goal at the end, yes, it makes things look a bit more palatable. But like was said, I think we're still hoping for better performance throughout the 90 minutes.
And
that's all that is.
That's what it is. Like you can be angry at a loss, but you can also expect a loss. But it's just the manner of how you lose. And I think what's important for us now, obviously, you just sort of listed those teams there. For us, my target would be now is making sure, and this goes back to possibly the Alan Pardew or the Steve Bruce days where you had that little mini table, but that was including the relegation zone. Our target for me is to be top of that little cluster of teams, because if you are, for me, you'll get European football, whether that be Conference League or Europa League next season. But like I say, there's still a lot of football to play. There's hopefully players to come back. There's still a lot of winnable games. So there's
huge one on Tuesday, like you mentioned. Huge one on Tuesday. There's what I think is it 7,000-8,000 Newcastle fans here. So it's going to be like a home crowd, really. I
think if you win that game, it makes sort of the last few results. Obviously, we've only lost one in I think 6, but you've got the draws against Bournemouth and Luton in there that you feel like you probably should have won. But it just makes that slight frustration of games. If you can win on Tuesday, like you say, it makes it more palatable. It's a positive spin on a frustrating time. So, like I say, it's still plenty to be positive for. People don't slate in the comments. Like we're just giving we're just giving an honest opinion of what we feel. Like we're not looking through black and white glasses like some fans do. And there is still positives at the end of the day.
Exactly that. Thanks for all those that have watched on YouTube or listened via whatever audio platform you listen to these sort of podcasts. If you are listening to the audio as well, just jump online, give us a 5-star review. It means a lot to us. If you listen to the audio as well, always listen to the audio. I prefer listening to audio as well. But if you do want to see the videos as well, those are all available on YouTube. So just search for Gallowgate Shots, become a subscriber. Just like the video, helps us out massively. If you want to give an extra bit back, it is just $2.99 a month to become a member. You get early access to content. All of our match previews go out a day or two before everybody else gets access to them, and they're always great to watch. And you do get access to the members Telegram group as well, which is full of around about 200 people at the moment, all Newcastle United fans, and they do have occasional meetups as well. So after the match, everybody will meet up, and myself and whoever else is around will pop out to see them as well. Yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. I'm back tomorrow night on the Always Smiling Faces podcast, and fingers crossed we go and progress on Tuesday night and take some frustration out on Blackburn. Thanks, Ian. See you later.
In a bit.